Thank you. Councillor Gardner, please stand for the national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
That's it. Thank you. The acting Mayor of the month of October is Councillor Carolyn Ebert. We acknowledge we are gathering on the territorial or the traditional territory of the Mohawk people of Akwesasne. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Glenn Grant.
Present. Councillors
Claude McIntosh. Dennis Carr. Here. Sid Gardner.
Here.
Dean Hollingsworth.
Present.
Caroline Hébert. Councillors Maurice Dupel.
Present, Madam Clerk.
Elaine McDonald.
Present.
Todd Bennett.
Present.
Justin Towndale.
Present.
And Éric Bergeron.
Present.
All present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any additions, deletions, or amendments? Councillor Towndale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull consent item 5, please, non-competitive bidding report.
Any others?
Mr. Mayor, while this isn't an addition, I just wanted to mention that the agenda was revised on Friday to include a little bit of wording that was missed on the notice of motion.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Dupel, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Any disclosures of interest for this evening? Councillor Hebert?
There we go. I won't step away from the discussion, but there are two communication items that mention Social Development Council activities, like our job fair and a presentation that took place. So there's no financial interest for myself as a staff member of the Social Development Council. I just wanted to disclose that there is a mention of projects I've been involved with through my paid employment on two reports.
Thank you. Any others? Hearing none, moving on. Do I have a motion to go in the committee of the whole? Councillor Bennett, Councillor Towndale, all in favor? Carried, thank you. I have a motion to adopt the minutes of Tuesday, September 21st and September 27th. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Gardner, all in favor? Opposed, carried. No presentations.
And no delegations. Under consent reports, we have some proclamations recommending that Council proclaim October 21st, 2021 as Annual Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day in the City of Cornwall. That Council proclaim Friday, October 15th, 2021 as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day in the City of Cornwall. That Council proclaim October 24th, 2021 as World Polio Day in the City of Cornwall and approve the End Polio flag to be flown at 340 Pitt Street from Monday, October 18th to Sunday, October 24th. That Council approve the Royal Canadian Legion's request to hold its annual Poppy Drive the weekends of October 29th to 31, November 4th to 7, and November 10th, 2021 in the City of Cornwall, and to allow its flag to be flown at 340 Pitt Street on Friday, October 29th.
Motion to approve the consent report. Councilor McIntosh, Councilor Bennett, all in favor? Carried.
Resolution, whereas the Corporation of the City of Cornwall entered into an agreement with the Township of Charlottenburg on January 9th, 1984, to jointly operate the aerodrome known as the Cornwall Regional Airport. And whereas the agreement states the annual operating budget of the airport is funded by the parties as follows: the Township 15% to a maximum of $10,000, the City 85% with no maximum, and the capital budget is funded as follows: the Township 15%, the City 85%. Whereas the Cornwall Regional Airport Commission recently contracted Explorer Solutions to prepare an airport business plan. And whereas the city would be required to make a significant investment to fund the capital requirements in the plan. Whereas the airport serves a large region that encompasses all of SDNG and beyond. Whereas despite considerable effort and expense, the airport continues to be used primarily for recreational flying with little commercial activity. And whereas the ratepayers of the City of Cornwall receive very little economic benefit from the airport, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Cornwall notify the Township that the city plans to terminate the agreement.
Motion. Councilor Carr, Councilor Bennett. Discussion? Councilor Bergeron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've gone back and forth on this one. I do sit on the Airport Commission. I have seen this committee kind of try and work over the last few years. Reading the motion as it is, I will be voting against it. I think negotiating a better agreement is the right first step. If that agreement isn't in our favor, then I would support something like this. But the agreement clearly needs to be changed. This motion says terminate. I suspect we could renegotiate afterwards, but that's not part of this, correct? Madam CEO, that's not...
CEO. Maybe push down on
I should know that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the intent of the resolution is to put forward notice to South Glengarry to terminate the agreement.
Thank you. So I'll stay with voting against. Thank you.
Councilor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sure some of my colleagues could articulate a number of reasons why we want to get out of it. Fair enough. But I think that if we were to step back for just a moment, and if council was looking at, let's say, a $20,000 investment as opposed to the $100,000, with an airstrip that was accommodate the bigger planes, with potentially a terminal that is a terminal, not what we have right now, I would be willing to suggest that maybe this motion wouldn't be on the table. However, as chairman of the commission, I feel compelled to point out that while certainly as it stands right now, it's not a really good arrangement for the city, I don't disagree, but I think this motion may be a tiny bit premature in that it might be worth our while to see what our colleagues next door would be willing to do in terms of a negotiation or a new arrangement. And if it doesn't look like it's going to work out, then I would suggest that this motion would be in order. But as much as I appreciate, as I said, the current arrangement doesn't really work for the city, I think that quite frankly our colleagues in South Glengarry would probably even agree with the better part of that, although I can't put words in their mouth, but I think it's definitely seems a bit one-sided to just sever without even entering potential negotiation. I think is a bit premature, and thus I'll not support the motion. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councilor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this resolution, if we pass it, and I urge my colleagues to pass it, would be a step in probably a lengthy negotiation, and that there is no exit clause in the current agreement, so it'll take us a little little while to get there. But I think that we've been on the verge of making this resolution for a long time. We had the report during the last term of council from the Raymond Chabot Thornton group, who recognized that there was potentially a regional benefit to the airport, and they suggested there should be, therefore, a regional buy-in, and that was probably 4 years ago, and nobody stepped up looking for an opportunity to invest in the project. We've already invested pretty close to $1 million, I would imagine, over the lifetime of this current agreement. And I think that it's been of no benefit, no significant benefit to the citizens of Cornwall. There is some benefit for some upper levels of government. You know, like I won't name them. There's a whole list here that the Chamber of Commerce forwarded to us of people who benefit from the airport, and I don't see them lining up to contribute to further investment. And we are in the point now where we need to invest significantly or stop the, get out of the deal altogether, which I think is what we should do. So I support the motion as it's written.
Councillor Gardner?
I really am going to support that we terminate the agreement. For years, I sat on that committee, and the 85-15 split was talked about over and over and over and over, but until the counties, or South Glengarry, became afraid that we were going to walk away from this, they then had some changes of their minds that they were going to do more funding and pick up a lot of what we were paying. I'm so disappointed. I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I'm disappointed that the federal government were the ones who had this airport brought to SDG, and a few years later opted out with no funding. So that left us to fund the airport, both communities. I don't know where they are now, but we have two representatives from the federal and from the provincial government hearing what we're saying and hearing what South Glengarry is saying and not acting on it. I don't believe that the taxpayers of Cornwall should be paying for an airport that's used only by fun-loving people. They have the money for the airplanes. They should fund some of that airport. I have a problem with them not paying their share. The federal government opted in, and then they opted out. And we're the ones who became responsible for the airport being in South Glengarry to begin with. They were. And they should step up to the plate right now. And I think Eric Duncan needs a call to help us out to at least have a 5,000-foot runway, which would really improve the traffic in that airport. It would allow larger planes to land. It would allow businesses to bring in their loads of whatever they need, like Walmart, at that airport. I know that Elton John at one time was coming to Cornwall and landed in Ottawa because our airport strip was too short. So people like that would use our strip, and it would encourage Uber or taxis to run back and forth from the airport. Right now, because it took the township so long to come up with a bit of a solution, I'm going to vote in favor that we terminate the agreement and hope they get off their duffs and hope that the federal and provincial representatives that we have finally represent us in this case here. And that's all I have to say, except I'm really, really disappointed that nothing's been done up till now.
Councillor Towndale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with my colleagues who sit with me on the Airport Commission. I've been saying for years that I think a new agreement is the first way forward for any of this. A lot of the issues that have been raised at the airport over the last number of years tie back to the agreement. It's very binding. I mean, there's a copy, I believe, in this agenda. I mean, over the past years too, I've made the same argument for why I think we should stay in. I think that I understand the desire to pull the plug, as it were, even though there will be a 3-year period where this is taking place. But I do think that without at least the exploration of the negotiation of a new agreement and that attempt, that it is premature. I don't have much else to add. I've made similar arguments in the past that detail my position on this. But I do know that in the 7 years that I've sat on the commission, I've seen drastic change in terms of the use. At one time, it was there was another flight school there. Jet fuel was added, and there are more commercial customers. And even with the loss of one of the flight schools, fuel sales are up year over year, which is interesting to see because the customers tend to be more on the government side, the OPP, the Canadian Armed Forces, Orange, et cetera, so forth. So I think there's potential there, but I think that the agreement itself is flawed. I don't think that the cost sharing has ever been fair, but I do think that pulling the plug right now is premature. Thank you.
Councillor Carr?
Thank you, Richard. My question is, this has been public knowledge that the city was looking to get out of this agreement. And since we,
Mike.
sorry, just new. All the things to forget a microphone. Anyway,
Have you?
when we talk about this particular problem that we have with the airport and the Airport Commission, and the fact that we'd like to get out of the agreement entirely, has anyone from the other partners in this agreement contacted the city?
MCAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have always maintained communication with the CAO in South Glengarry, but I have not had any indication from South Glengarry as to like a proposal with respect to renegotiating the agreement.
Would we be mistaken if we took from that non-action by our neighbors that they don't care whether we support it or not?
I couldn't answer that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I couldn't answer that question.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're it's about time we stood up and said, we're not going to fund this airport anymore. We put enough money into it and never received any real benefit from our participation. Thank you.
Councillor DePel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So reading over the report, I mean, this has been a conversation that's fluttered around the council table since I've been on council, and I think that the 85% hasn't been a fair sharing the cost, and I don't think that the residents of Cornwall benefit 85% from the airport, so I will support the motion that's before us to terminate the agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sat on the Economic Development Committee back in 2010, and shortly after that, I remember seeing a new business plan for the airport and thinking, wow, this is going to be great. Can't wait to see how this all turns out. And then really, I don't remember much of that plan ever being implemented. And then there's been 2 more since. And the one that really makes me nervous is the new one, which is calling for millions of dollars of improvements that our residents of the city of Cornwall are on the hook for 85% of. I can't ask the residents of the city of Cornwall to pay 85% of millions of dollars for an airport that we see very little economic benefit for. And that is the #1 reason why I'm going to support this resolution.
Councillor Ebert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo some of the thoughts of my fellow councillor colleagues. I don't believe the cost sharing has been fair, and I don't believe that our residents have been serviced by this burden on their tax bill. I have no problem spending extra money for our residents if it is to ensure our community continues to be sustainably conscious when it comes to social issues, environmental issues, even, financially. We need to continue our sustainability. But I don't think this hits any of those, and it doesn't impact 85% of our population. So I will certainly support this motion. I think it's about time.
Councillor McIntosh? Push it down. No, right at the base. There you go.
Hello. Okay. Thank you. I'm very tech savvy, am I? Councillor Appel made a point that since he's been on council, Morris, that's been a few years that they've talked about it. I know I was going to say my term in council was 7 years, going to 8. We've talked about it. Been a lot of talk, no action at all. I think this came up the last time in the last term of council. We had a meeting with the consultant in this room, and all at once, South Glengarry, oh yeah, you guys are really on the bad end of the deal. We're going to fix this, and we haven't heard from them since. Somebody mentioned we must have put $1 million into it. Actually, the figure here is $2,725,000 compared to their $231,000 operational and capital. We've invested $915,445, and they've kicked in the big sum of $161,000. I wouldn't care if it was a 50-50 deal. I still wouldn't go for it. The airport benefits if you own a plane and you belong to a flying club. It's great, and we're subsidizing that. They don't even use our fuel. So I'm going to vote against this. I would vote in favor of the motion. It's long overdue, and let's get it going. Take a step back. We've been taking a step back for 20 or 30 years now. It's time to take a step forward, I think, on this issue and make the decision tonight. So with that, we'll get the thing underway to sever our agreement.
Thank you. Everyone has had a chance to speak, so I'm going to voice my support of the motion. I was elected to council in 2003, other than 4 years, and even during those 4 years, there was conversation about the airport. Whether it was at AMO or other functions, we had conversations, unofficial, with the council of South Glengarry, and we always heard, well, we'll renew the agreement. We'll renew the agreement and make it fair. Well, that's how many years later, 18 years later, and it's the same deal. So now it's time to let them know that we're serious, and we're going to say, we're out of the airport business, and let's go from there. And I think it's about time that we got some of payback for some of our investment in there as well. So I'll support the motion. So right now, we'll call the motion. All in favor of the motion?
Recorded vote, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors Claude McIntosh,
In favor of the motion.
Dennis Carr. In favor. Sid Gardner.
Favor.
Dean Hollingsworth. Caroline Hébert.
In favor?
Modeste Dupel.
In favor.
Elaine McDonald.
In favor?
Councillors Todd Bennett.
In favor?
Justin Towndale.
No.
Éric Bergeron.
Opposed?
And Mr. Mayor.
In favor.
8 in favor, Mr. Mayor. 3 opposed. Carried.
Thank you for good discussion.
Next on the agenda is our finished business listing, and we're looking for a motion for council to receive this list.
Councillor DePel, second by Councillor Towndale. All in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, go ahead.
I know we want to try and break a record here, Your Worship.
No. We already
I
broke
get that.
record.
I hate to be that guy, but just a quick question. When I look at the listing, it seems to me we had the whole ward discussion thing, whether we go to wards or not, and 8 councillors. Originally, that was a new business item, correct? And if it was, shouldn't it still technically be on the list because we haven't dealt with it officially? That makes sense?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can. So the items that were on the unfinished business listing were items that requested reports, information. The last item was to have a town hall meeting, so we've done that. So as we've done those items or provided that information, then those items have been removed from the unfinished business listing.
Okay.
So from our perspective, I think we're under the impression that we have provided council with all of the information that you require to make a decision on that matter. However, if there's anything that council still would like to have, then we're happy to bring that information forward.
Well, then I'll ask a second subsequent question, Your Worship. That being said, when can we debate whether we're going to, do we have to make a motion to put it back on the agenda then? Is that what we're doing? Or, I don't know what we're doing, because it's not on new business anymore. I understand what you've said, Madam CAO, but what's going to happen now? Because I'd like to get on with it. If we're going to go to wards, then let's just do that. If we're not going to wards, I just want to bury it and be done of it. But I'd like to address it. So how do we proceed with that issue moving forward?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if someone on council would like to bring that motion forward, that motion can be brought forward through a notice of motion to be debated at council. So a notice of motion would be presented at one meeting, and then it would be debated at the following meeting.
Okay, so one last point. That being said, if nobody ever makes a motion, that means it just kind of dies on the order paper? Like it doesn't, there's no official resolution because nobody made some motion? Is that how that works?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be correct, because we've provided the information, but
Right.
from that, if council chooses not to make a motion, they don't have to make a motion.
Okay, great, terrific. Thank you, Your Worship.
All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Under the communication items, strategic priorities update, with the recommendation that council receive this report.
Motion? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Bennett, Councillor Towndale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had one thing I wanted to correct. It mentions the Waterfront Plan Implementation Committee, but I believe that's a group. We were specifically told as much at our first meeting, so I know there's a distinction as that was explained to us at that time, so I just wanted that corrected.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The waterfront implementation, it's a working group, it's not a committee.
Thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Mayor's Task Force on Housing update, with the recommendation that council receive this report.
Councillor Gardner, second by Councillor Hollingsworth. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And third quarter non-competitive procurement report, with a recommendation that council receive this report for the period ending September 30th, 2021.
Motion? Councillor Towndale, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Councillor Towndale, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this out of consent because I do have a question. It's regarding the second item listed here, regarding Brookdale Avenue Road rehabilitation. References for additional deliveries by the original supplier of goods and/or services that were not included in the initial procurement. I just want clarification on what that is, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. EVB was retained by the corporation to do work on Brookdale Avenue Road reconstruction, and so the additional fees are for a scope change for construction admin services that they provide for that project oversight.
What's our motion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
We have no new business motions, and we have no bylaws. So moving on to reports from standing, advisory, special, and ad hoc committees of council.
Councillor Gardner?
I'd like to congratulate, and I did congratulate Dr. Paul for being chosen as a Outstanding Community Builder of the Year by the United Way East organization, and I did so on behalf of council also. So congratulations, Dr. Paul. He really earned it.
Sorry, Councillor Gardner, I apologize for that.
No, I was just congratulatory to Dr. Paul for being chosen the Community Builder of the Year by the Eastern Ontario United Way group, and I did so for council and for you on the phone. He earned it. He works hard for it. The man, I don't know when he sleeps, and I don't know if he ever sees his wife, but he's on the go all the time. We have 5 offices, over 250 employees, and I also, when I congratulated him, also suggested that without the employees that we have working so hard for us, that would not have happened. So, and he understood that.
Any other reports of committees?
Next on the agenda are notices of motion, and we have none. Then the confirming bylaw. We're looking for a motion for the confirming bylaw to be endorsed.
Motion? Councillor Hebert, Councillor DePel, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Good meeting.